Hello my friends, it's Cassie. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we are celebrating the July release for Heffy Doodle, and it's with a blog hop. But I have a video, so I have both. Today we're going to be using the Fluffy Puffy unicorns and dies. I am in love with this little set. They are just so fluffy and cute and unlike anything I've seen on the market. And then we have the Heffy Doodle Stitched Slimline Trio die. I'm going to use the biggest one. We also have the Stitched Silver Linings Cloud Border die, and we also have the Swirly Clouds. I don't end up using the Swirly Clouds, but they were there. And then I am going to use some Strathmore Bristle Smooth cardstock. I have tried other Bristle cardstocks, but Strathmore is my favorite. So I'm going to run the biggest of the Slimline Stitched Trios over that Bristle Smooth 3 times. I want 3 panels, and I'm going to do some ink blending. I have my Waffle Flower Media Mat out, and I am going to just start with this first color, which is Milled Lavender. I'm going to do that at the very bottom of this piece, and I don't need the whole piece to be that color. I just need a few pieces from this. So I'm just going to put that on the bottom half of that cardstock, and then I'm going to come in with some Seedless Preserves on the other half. Yeah, and then I'll just kind of blend those out. I know that's kind of a rough blend, but it gets a little better here. It works really great on that Bristle Smooth. It just kind of blends beautifully. Then we're going to come in with Dusty Concord. You notice I did not clean off my brush in between. I went from the lightest color to my darkest color, and then I did not have to clean off my brush. And I stayed within the purple family, so I wasn't worried about contamination that way. And I'm going to do 2 panels using that Dusty Concord. One of them I'm going to cut up with the cloud die, and the other one is going to be my base. So we'll just go ahead and cover both of those panels with that Dusty Concord, and we're going to kind of let those dry just a little bit. Now, one of the things I've noticed about the Distress Oxides is that when you try to run those through a die cutting machine, after, like for example, I'm going to do here, it will transfer onto your plates if you're not careful. So what I like to do is I will take a piece of scrap paper and I will put that down first, then I will put my cardstock or my Distress Oxide on top of that. So here's what I'm doing. I've got my die taped down, and then I'm going to run this through my die cutting machine. Alright, and then we're just going to keep die cutting until we have all the pieces cut out that we would like. And then we're going to kind of line those up a little bit just to see how I want those stacked on each other. This bottom one, I am going to add a little bit of black soot to it. And that's a little bit stark right there, a little too dark. So I'm going to bring in that Dusty Concord again. And this way I can get a little bit better blend. So we'll do that on that one. And we're even going to bring in just some of that darker, the black soot, onto the next piece as well. So we can kind of get an idea. I bring in some Heffy tape. This stuff is awesome not only for masking, but it's also great to hold down dies, or in this case, attach it to my fingers so that I don't get the transfer. Because, you know, oftentimes with Distress Oxide, you touch it with your fingers and you're going to leave a fingerprint. So I clearly don't want that, and so it works really well for that. And now we'll start attaching our piece down to our base. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my best to line those up, and I'm going to put glue mostly on just the bottom of the piece. If I have to come in later and add glue to the upper parts of the piece, I will, but since I have to go from the bottom up, this is the best way I found. And the reason I have to go from the bottom up is just because I'm not 100% sure how those are all going to line up perfectly. So let's see, as you can tell here, so I had to pull that one off, and I'm going to re-glue it. I noticed there is a little bit of a gap there, but I will end up covering that with some of the elements that I put on the front of the card. But I have to leave the upper portion unglued so that I can tuck some of those clouds inside. So like I said, once I'm happy with how everything is, I'll go back with some of that glue, and then I will re-glue the upper pieces just to make sure that those are all completely covered and they're not going anywhere. This one will have a little bit of a problem on the side as well. As you can see, it's going to leave a gap, but I will cover that again. I'll cover that with some of the elements that I'll bring into the card, so I'm not worried about it. And I'll just keep working my way up. So you'll notice we go from darker, and then we go lighter, and to really light, and then we're going to start to go darker again. We're going to go backwards. I just love this, and I will show you later on in the video where I got my inspiration from for this background. But it's fun to just kind of grab a color family and go to town like we did here. Alright, so now I'm pretty happy with how that looks, and everything is fairly glued down. We are going to stick it inside of our makeshift splatter box, and I'll grab some aqua pigment in the color Pearl. And this is basically just a pearlescent liquid watercolor. So I'll just splatter that all over the background pretty liberally. You could even just splatter water on it and wipe that up too, but I really wanted this to sparkle and have that look of stars, basically. So we'll take a look at that and look at how shiny and sparkly all those little dots are. We'll set that off to the side to dry, and then we'll move on to our stamping. I have some more of that Bristle smooth cardstock into my Misty, and I'm inking up all the images using some VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. You would just want to make sure that you're using some sort of a watercolor ink if you plan to use the medium I'm using, which is just the Arteza Real Brush Markers. Alright, so I am going to stamp these more than once. This is one of the little tips or tricks I would share with you, is always stamp more images than you think you might need. You can use them for other cards, or you can decorate your insides, which I like to do as well. So here we are starting out. I did not write down any of the colors. I do apologize, but I will say that this comes from the set of 96, which I will have linked down below. And all I'm doing is putting a little wash of that color on the edges of my little unicorn. I'm not coloring the full thing, and then I'll bring in a water brush to spread that color around. So I like these because you get that watercolor look, but I feel like you have tons of control, which is pretty nice. Sometimes with watercolor, I don't always feel like I have lots of control. So we'll just continue on with each of those little unicorns. We'll just put down a little bit of that color and then spread it around. And I do like how it dries back just a little bit. It's not quite as bright, maybe, but I do like this look an awful lot. And when I get done coloring all these 5 main images, as far as just putting this particular color down, I'll show you where my inspiration came from. Sometimes I will look to Pinterest when I'm not sure, you know, and I thought that was just such a cute little image, so that's where I pulled my purples from and the color of my unicorn. Now I didn't go entirely as far as the main goes. I didn't copy that completely or try and replicate that. I just chose 3 colors. I chose a pink, a yellow, and this little blue. And this first one I put down the pink, and then I went to the yellow, and then I went to the blue, and I discovered I wasn't really liking how well that blended. So in the next ones, I will do it a little bit differently. So for this next one, I'm going to start with the blue, and then bring in the pink, and then I will mix those in the middle with the yellow. So it just takes out one of those steps that aren't really necessary. So there it is, and then we'll do that for all of the rest of them, starting with either the blue or the pink, and then blending that in with the yellow. I just felt like I got a better blend that way. So this is another way to use these real brush markers. You don't have to bring in any water. You can mix them just with each other, which is probably my favorite way to do it. And there you go. Now we'll just line up all the matching dies, and we'll tape that down with a little bit of washi tape, and then we'll run that through our die cutting machine, and we'll have all of those adorable little unicorns all cut out. Super fun, along with those clouds. And then we're going to stamp our sentiments. So that's the next step. I'll use a magic powder bag over some Oreo Crunch cardstock, and then I will ink that up with some VersaMark ink and stamp that down, and then cover that with this Alabaster embossing powder. It's a fine detail white embossing powder, and then I will heat set this till that is smooth and melted. And yeah, I went ahead and did them all in one go. I figured it was just a little bit easier. So after I'm done with that, I will pick up my mess, and then I'm going to trim out my sentiments one by one, just lining it up in my guillotine trimmer. I found that this is the easiest way for me to just trim out sentiments. Very, very simple. And then we'll move on to our card base. Our card base is some very heavyweight cardstock, and I cut it down to 7 inches by 8.5 inches. And not all Slimline are the same. I'm scoring this at 3.5 inches. Not all of them are the same, but this is the one that matches my my card panel perfectly. So that biggest Slimline Trio die is 3.5 inches by 8.5 inches. Now that I've kind of got everything situated, decided where I wanted things, we'll start gluing stuff down. We'll have our 5 little unicorn on the outside, and I just think they're so adorable. They're so happy, and they just look so pretty on that purple. Ugh. imagine the different skylines you could do. Wouldn't that be fun? But yes, I definitely enjoy going to Pinterest when I have a hard time figuring out what I want to do. I just find that, you know, even if you just look up, like in this case, I looked up unicorns. And it gave me so many different ideas, different ways to color them, different looks, different backgrounds that you can draw inspiration from. It isn't always, you know, I get these compliments and they're wonderful. They make me feel so good about how I'm so creative. And yeah, I believe I do have some creativity. But I do like to just be inspired by all the things around me and, you know, different color palettes and whatnot. So keep that in mind. All right, we are going to decorate the inside. So I had a couple pieces left over from the clouds, and I thought that would be fun to put those on the inside as well. So I'll glue those down. I realized, though, that I didn't have any splatter on that. And so I'm going to have to bring that in here in a little bit. I did have some excess that I'll have to trim off. And then we'll start gluing pieces down. But before I glue any down to the clouds, I will splatter that. I do apologize, my camera does give out here, and I didn't realize it until after I had finished the inside, but you'll see it in the end, how it actually looks, which isn't much different than what you just saw there. But I am, yeah, I don't show you the whole process of just gluing stuff down. So there we are, just splattering the inside. We do have to let that dry a minute or two, and then we'll start adhering our card panel to the front of our card base. I'm going to use that same liquid glue that I've been using. A strong adhesive at this point would work because you, or at least in this case, I do have several panels that are kind of overlapping. And see how perfectly that matches. For a final bit of embellishment, I do have some HAI Supply Diamond Clear Jewels that I am tacking down with my Crystal Katana along with my Nuvo Deluxe Liquid Adhesive. And just putting 3 here and there. And I think one spot I have 2. But I used them pretty liberally, and I love the shine that it brings, just so pretty. But that's actually going to finish off our card, and love it. And I love the new release from Heffy Doodle. So as I said, this is a part of a blog hop. I will have my blog listed in the description box down below. So go ahead and click on that so you can head on over and get all the details about the giveaway. You don't want to miss that, and hop around and check out all the new release. If you liked this video, please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And as always, I will see you very soon in another video. Bye, everybody.